The first time a cop laughed in my face while I begged for help, I thought I was going to pass out right there on the station floor. He just mocked the way I said, "Please stop," while I was being attacked, even reenacted it in a high-pitched voice for his partner. They both chuckled like it was the funniest thing in the world and then high-fived each other while I stood there shaking, covered in bruises. I'll never forget the sound of their laughter. It felt louder than the pounding in my chest. Louder than my own sobbing. Louder than the truth I was desperate to force them to hear. That night, I wasn't the mayor's daughter. I wasn't anyone important. I was just another broken girl in a torn dress, and to them, that meant I deserved nothing. It was September 17th. I'll never forget the date, because the moment I stumbled into the police station at 2:07 in the morning, I crossed into a nightmare that still hasn't ended. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me as I pushed through the doors, my knees blooded from falling on the pavement when I tried to escape. Mascara streaks burned my face, and the vodka stains on my dress made me smell like a bar floor. I remember thinking, maybe if I just get to the desk, if I just say the words out loud, someone will finally help me. But Officer Daniels didn't even bother to stand when he looked up from his phone. He just sighed, leaned back in his chair, and said, "Let me guess. You got too drunk at some party and now you regret hooking up with somebody." I opened my mouth to speak, but my throat closed. All that came out was a choked sob. Daniels rolled his eyes and called over his partner. "Hey, Riley, another Saturday night special. Girl can't hold her liquor, wants us to ruin some guy's life over it." Riley walked over, smirking, and looked me up and down like I was trash left on the curb. "Look at that dress," he sneered. "Barely covers anything. You really thought you wouldn't give somebody the wrong idea dressed like that?" I could feel heat rise in my face, shame, anger, humiliation, all fighting at once. But my voice cracked when I said, "Someone hurt me. Please. I need help." Riley leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. "How much did you drink, sweetheart? Can you even remember what happened? Or are you just assuming?" Daniels laughed. "Those bruises on your arms? Probably from you falling down drunk. Look at her knees, crawling around puking in the bushes." When Riley grabbed my wrist to check the bruises and pressed down hard, I yelped in pain. He smirked. "Could be from anything. Girls like you always bruise easy when you're wasted." I begged them. I said I didn't care if they believed me, I just needed a report filed. I needed something. Daniels finally grabbed a form, but instead of taking me seriously, he made a big show of mocking me like I was a child. "Can you spell your name for me? Do you remember your address? Do you remember the bad man's name, or were you too drunk to ask?" Every question was soaked in sarcasm. Riley was laughing so hard he had to lean on the desk. And then they went too far. Daniels crumpled the form and tossed it in the trash. "This is a waste of taxpayer money," he said, before cuffing his hand in the air. "Maybe we should just book her for public intoxication and filing a false report." Riley chuckled. "Cavity search too. You know these girls usually have something hidden." That's when I started crying so hard my whole body shook. "Please," I begged, "I just want to go home." But instead of helping me, Daniels grabbed my arm and shoved me against the wall. The cold cinder block bit into my skin as he twisted my wrists behind my back. "Resisting, huh? Guess you do need a night in the tank." The metal cuffs clamped down, biting into my skin. My vision blurred. My whole body screamed at me to disappear. I thought it couldn't get worse. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, if I didn't make them angrier, maybe they'd process me and let me go. But then Daniels started patting me down. His hands lingered in places they had no right to be, and Riley stood there watching with this disgusting grin. My heart pounded so loud I thought I'd faint. For a split second, I thought about just letting my knees give out so I wouldn't have to feel any of it. And then it happened. Riley picked up my purse, dumped everything onto the floor, and froze when he saw my ID card. His face went pale. He stared at the name, then at me, then back at the name. His voice cracked when he whispered, "Holy Tia Daniels, this is the mayor's daughter." In that moment, everything changed. The same hands that had just shoved me against the wall suddenly scrambled to unlock the cuffs. Daniels dropped the key twice before finally getting it off me, babbling apologies. Riley knelt on the floor, scooping up my belongings and shoving them back into my purse like a frantic child cleaning up a mess before his parents got home. "Miss Carter, this is a misunderstanding," Daniel stammered, his face white as paper. "We'll take your statement right now. We'll get this sorted." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The tears choked me, and rage burned hotter than my voice could keep up with. I grabbed my shattered phone from the floor and staggered toward the door. Daniels reached for me. "Oh wait, please, let's handle this properly," and that's when I screamed. "Don't you ever touch me again." My voice tore out of me raw and jagged, so loud the entire station turned to stare. I shoved the door open, leaving bloody footprints from my torn knees across the asphalt as I stumbled to my car. And in the rearview mirror, I saw them still standing there, the men who had laughed at me, cuffed me, touched me, and now arguing with each other under the buzzing lights of the station. I thought that had to be rock bottom. But it wasn't. Not even close. When I finally pulled into my parents' driveway that night, it was for 18 a.m. My headlight swept across the living room window, and I froze when I saw both my parents still awake. My mom was pacing, arms wrapped around herself, her hair tied up but messy like she'd been tugging at it all night. My dad, Mayor Carter, had his phone pressed to his ear, his voice booming even through the glass. The second I walked through the door, my mom gasped like she'd been holding her breath for hours. She reached for me, her hands hovering over my torn dress, my bruised face, the red marks around my wrists. Her lips trembled, but she didn't ask questions. She just held me. My dad wasn't so quiet. "Tell me what happened. Now." The word snapped like a whip. He dropped the political calm I'd seen him use at press conferences. His face was pure rage. I stuttered, trying to explain, Tyler Morrison at the party, the stairwell, how I ran, how I stumbled to the station. But when I got to Daniels and Riley, when I said out loud what they'd done to me in that station, I watched something I'd never seen before. My father's composure broke. His hand shook as he grabbed his phone again, barking into it. "Get Chief Warren on the line. Now. I don't care what time it is." My mom guided me to the couch, whispering soft things I couldn't even process. She examined my bruises with trembling fingers, her tears dripping onto my skin as she snapped photo after photo for evidence. By 5 a.m., our front door opened again. Chief Warren himself walked in, pale and sweating. He wasn't alone, 2 female officers and someone from Victim Services trailed behind him. The second his eyes landed on me, he looked sick. I told them everything. The party. The assault. Daniel slamming me against the wall. Riley crushing my phone. The mocking, the high five, the way they touched me. I could barely get the words out without my throat closing, but when I said Daniel's pat-down wasn't really a pat-down, Warren's jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might snap. The female officers collected my torn dress in an evidence bag while my mom fetched me fresh clothes. My dad never sat down. He stood like a statue by the fireplace, taking calls from lawyers, city officials, journalists, every few minutes his voice rising. Suspended immediately. I don't care if the union fights it. Suspended. At 6:30 a.m., my mom drove me to St. Matthew's Hospital. The rape kit exam took hours. Every flash of the camera documenting my injuries made bile rise in my throat. I threw up twice. The nurse whispered that it wasn't unusual, but I still felt like I was failing some kind of test. My body was betraying me over and over. Through the walls, I heard my father's voice carrying from the hallway, demanding criminal charges, demanding accountability, demanding justice. I felt so far away from his fury, curled on that sterile bed with my body cold and exposed under hospital sheets. By noon, the story had already leaked. Reporters camped outside our house, vans lining the street. I hadn't even made it home from the hospital before someone shoved a microphone in my face, asking, "Miss Carter, do you plan to press charges against Tyler Morrison?" Against the officers. My mom shoved them back and screamed for space, but the cameras just kept flashing. That afternoon, my dad stood at a podium and announced a full investigation into police misconduct. He carefully didn't say my name, but everyone in our city knew. The mayor's daughter. That's all I was now. Not a victim. Not a girl who'd been assaulted twice in one night. Just the mayor's daughter in a scandal that would eat the city alive. I didn't leave my room for 3 days. Every time I heard footsteps in the hallway, I thought it was Daniel's. Every time my phone buzzed, I thought it was Riley. My mom sat with me, silent, spooning cold soup I couldn't eat onto the bedside table. When the crisis counselor called, I couldn't pick up. Everything blurred together, the party, the stairwell, the police station, the cuffs biting into my wrists. I couldn't even tell anymore which part had broken me worse. By the third night, my dad came into my room. He sat heavily on the edge of my bed, his hand trembling on his knee. "Tyler's family has already hired lawyers," he said quietly. "They're claiming it was consensual." He stared at the floor. "And the police union is paying for Daniel's and Riley's defense. They're saying you were just a drunk girl who wouldn't cooperate." His voice cracked then, just once. "I need you to see something." He showed me his phone, official statements, polished words twisting reality, painting me as hysterical, unreliable, vengeful. My dad's jaw was locked tight, but his hand was shaking. And all I could think was, they were going to win. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was from Manny Alvarez, a guy I'd only half known from psychology class. His text said, "I was at the party. I saw Tyler dragging you upstairs. I have videos. If you want help, I'll meet you." For the first time in days, I felt something crack open in my chest. Not hope exactly. Not relief. But maybe the first breath of air after being underwater too long. I stared at that message for 20 minutes before I typed back one word. Yes. But even then, I didn't know. That Manny wasn't just another student. That his evidence would unravel everything. That this wasn't even close to the end of the nightmare. I thought the worst was over. But it wasn't. Not even close. I didn't sleep the night before I met Manny. I just sat on my bed with his text pulled up, staring at it like it might vanish. The words burned into my mind. "I was at the party. I saw Tyler dragging you upstairs. I have videos." By the time my mom drove me downtown, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold my coffee. She waited in the car while I forced myself inside the cafe, every step feeling like I was walking into a firing squad. Manny was already there in the back corner. When he saw me, he stood so fast his chair almost tipped over. He didn't hug me. He didn't shake my hand. He just quietly pulled out a chair and slid his laptop toward me. "Watch." The first video was timestamped 1:12 a.m. It showed Tyler with his arm locked around my waist, basically dragging me toward the stairs. My head lolled forward, my legs stumbling like I was wading through mud. My dress still neat, makeup intact, but I was clearly gone. The second video, timestamped 1:47 a.m., showed me bursting out the front door. My dress torn. Mascara streaked down my face. That was 35 minutes. 35 minutes that explained the bruises, the blood, the nightmare I couldn't forget. I couldn't breathe watching it. Manny pulled out a notebook where he'd scribbled the math. 35 minutes. That's when it happened. He didn't just help you upstairs, he kept you there. Then Manny opened another folder. Screenshots of group chats filled the screen. Tyler and his fraternity brothers. I read the words with shaking hands. Best when they're too drunk to fight back. Blackout girls don't make police reports. Another one in the books, she couldn't even walk straight. Message after message, bragging about turning girls into prey. And then Manny said something that made my stomach drop. My dad's the district attorney. I've been collecting this for months, ever since my friend Sarah told me Tyler hurt her too. She didn't want to come forward, she thought nobody would believe her. But now? You're not alone. The words hit me like ice water. Not alone. I hadn't realized how heavy the loneliness was until it cracked a little under the weight of his voice. It reminded me of something I'd buried years ago, a memory I didn't like touching. I was 15. A boy from school cornered me at a house party. Not as brutal as Tyler, but still, his hands where they shouldn't have been, his laugh when I said no. When I told my friends the next day, one of them rolled her eyes. You were drinking, right? That's on you. The other laughed. You probably wanted the attention anyway. Their words gutted me more than the boy had. I never brought it up again. I shoved it into a lockbox in my head and promised myself I'd be smarter, quieter, safer. But here I was years later, same story, different boy, different night, and it felt like history was looping around my throat. Manny kept talking, flipping through evidence like a detective instead of a 20-year-old student. He had screenshots, timestamps, chat logs. He'd even dug up a video of Tyler bragging to his frat brothers about getting girls so wasted they can't say no. Every new piece of proof made me feel sick, but also less crazy. Like maybe I hadn't imagined it. Maybe I wasn't just the drunk girl crying wolf Daniels had sneered about. When Manny closed the laptop, he finally looked me in the eye. They're going to try to destroy you. Tyler's family. The cops. The union. Everyone. But you're not crazy. You're not lying. And I'm not letting you do this alone. I wanted to believe him. But the next morning, the police union released what they called full body cam footage from Daniels and Riley. The edited video showed me slurring, crying, stumbling around. It cut out every moment of them laughing, touching, crushing my phone. The caption under the release read, "Evidence of a drunk girl lashing out at officers just doing their job." And for one terrifying second, I believed it. I looked at the screen and thought, maybe they're right. Maybe I was just a drunk girl. But then Manny texted me again, "Meet me tomorrow." There's more. They didn't know about the backup cameras. That was the first time I realized the story wasn't about to end. It was only beginning. And if the cops thought editing a tape would bury me, they had no idea how deep this was about to go. 2 days after the police union dumped that fake body cam video online, my dad got a call that changed everything. Captain Gloria Torres from Internal Affairs showed up at our house at 9 o'clock at night, no warning. She wore plain clothes, no badge in sight, and she carried a slim black laptop under her arm. She didn't sit on the couch like a guest. She didn't even take off her jacket. She went straight to the dining table, opened the laptop, and whispered. Most officers don't know about the ceiling cameras in booking. Then she hit play. There I was, stumbling through the station doors, knees bloody, dress torn. Daniels never looked up from his phone until I was right at the desk. The footage had no sound, but it didn't need it. You could see his smirk. You could see Riley lean in, laughing. You could see Daniel's hands on me during that so-called pat-down, his palms lingering far too long on my chest, his fingers sliding down between my legs while I stood frozen. Then Riley lifted his boot and crushed my phone under his heel. The shards scattered across the tile floor. And the worst part? The two of them acting it out, Riley pretending to be me, squealing "Please stop" while Daniels played the attacker. They high-fived each other while I shook and cried. Watching it on the screen made me feel like I was being assaulted all over again. My mom clutched my hand so hard her nails cut into my skin. My dad just sat there, stone-faced, until the video ended. Then he leaned forward, voice shaking, and said, "Make 3 copies. Right now." The next morning, federal prosecutors filed charges, sexual assault under color of law, destruction of evidence, civil rights violations, Daniels and Riley were perp-walked in cuffs before noon. News cameras swarmed, shouting questions about me, about my dad, about corruption. The headlines didn't call me drunk girl anymore. They called me the mayor's daughter. Like that was the only reason anyone cared. But justice didn't bring safety. The backlash hit fast. Manny's tires were slashed in the campus lot. His apartment door was spray-painted snitch. He started getting death threats from Tyler's fraternity brothers. My mom found me in the bathroom at 2 a.m. one night, scissors in my hands, hacking off my long blonde hair in jagged chunks. I told her I didn't want to look like that girl anymore. The one in the videos. The one on the news. She didn't stop me. She just helped, trimming the ends neat while we both cried. And then Tyler's family struck back. They filed a $2 million defamation lawsuit against my dad, claiming he was using his position as mayor to destroy an innocent young man's reputation. Their lawyer held a press conference outside the courthouse, calling me a regretful party girl. They demanded a public apology. But my dad just laughed, a bitter, hollow sound I'd never heard before. They just handed me discovery rights, he said. Now we get to see Tyler's phone. His computer. All of it. Within days, other girls started coming forward. One had saved text messages where Tyler bragged about getting them too drunk to fight back. Another had a secret recording, Tyler laughing with his friends about assaulting a cheerleader who'd passed out. Every new piece Manny collected added to a case file that grew thicker by the hour. But with every step forward, the pushback got uglier. I woke up one morning to find Vlaia spray-painted across my dorm door in dripping red paint that looked like blood. My roommates helped me pack, but I could see relief in their eyes, like they'd been waiting for me to leave. Moving back into my childhood bedroom at 19 felt like regressing into a cage. And the threats didn't just come from Tyler's side. Daniels and Riley started going on podcasts, telling their side. Painting me as violent, unstable. They called themselves victims of cancel culture. Their supporters raised $50,000 in donations for their defense. Every interview felt like being assaulted again, listening to them describe me as hysterical while strangers online called me every name in the book. Then Captain Torres came back. This time she didn't bring a laptop. She brought boxes. Stacks of files she'd copied before being locked out of the station. She spread them across our dining table like a poker hand. Complaints. Reports. Statements. All buried. All ignored. Daniels had 6 excessive force complaints that vanished. Riley had 4. One case file showed a homeless woman accusing Daniels of sexual assault during an arrest. It was dropped after she disappeared. Torres whispered one word like it was a curse. The Brotherhood. A secret pact inside the department. Officers covering for each other, destroying evidence, silencing victims. Her hands trembled as she said, "If I'm going down, I'm taking all of them with me." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Tyler. It wasn't just about 2 corrupt cops. This was a whole system built to bury girls like me. And I was the one standing in the middle of the storm, holding the match that could burn it all down. I thought I'd already hit bottom. But the bottom was still so much deeper. The trial felt like standing naked in front of the world while strangers debated whether I was lying. Tyler sat at the defense table, smirking like this was all beneath him. His lawyers called me a party girl, a liar, a manipulator. They showed jurors photos from my Instagram, asking why I dressed that way if I didn't want male attention. But then the prosecutor hit play. The fraternity's own video filled the courtroom screen. Tyler carrying my limp body upstairs, my arms hanging, my head lolling to the side. His frat brothers waiting in the hall, laughing, high-fiving, one of them making a gesture I can't even repeat. Silence filled the room. You could hear people breathing. One juror pressed a hand over her mouth like she might be sick. Tyler's lawyer stood up anyway, his voice oily as he argued, this was role-play. She pretended to be unconscious. Even the judge's face twisted in disgust. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke for 6 straight hours. My voice shook, but it didn't break. I described everything: the stairs, the assault, the blood, the bruises, the police station, the cuffs, Daniel's hands. And when Tyler's lawyer asked why I didn't scream louder, why I didn't fight harder, why I didn't call 911 right away, I looked him dead in the eye and said, I did. I went to the police. And they assaulted me too. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel for order. For once, it was their silence that filled the air, not mine. Manny testified next, showing video after video of Tyler preying on drunk girls at parties. The defense tried to paint him as jealous, but Manny just said calmly, I've been out as gay since sophomore year of high school. I helped because it was the right thing to do. Then the other victims came. One by one. Some via video feed because they couldn't sit in the same room as Tyler. Their voices cracked, but their stories matched mine almost word for word. By the time Tyler's frat brothers testified under immunity, admitting they all knew what he did, showing texts where he kept score of his conquests, even the jury looked furious. The deliberation didn't take long. 3 hours later, the foreman stood. Guilty. On all counts. Tyler's face collapsed, his mother wailed, and his father shouted about appeals. But the judge's voice cut through it all. 15 years. No early release. The sound of the gavel was the first time I let myself breathe. Daniel's cracked 2 days later. He stood in federal court, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on him, admitting he'd assaulted me and dozens of others during his career. Riley pled guilty soon after. Daniels got 20 years. Riley got 12 for cooperating. And then the dominoes fell. The FBI raided the department. 12 more officers indicted. 3 judges exposed. 2 prosecutors disgraced. The Brotherhood burned to the ground, box by box, file by file. My dad won his recall election in a landslide. Captain Torres won her whistleblower suit, millions in damages. She used half to fund a new foundation training officers how to handle assault cases. And me? I finally went back to school. It wasn't easy. Walking across campus felt like stepping on landmines, every laugh or whisper making my chest tighten. But Manny walked me to class twice a week, never asking, never pushing, just showing up with coffee and quiet solidarity. At night, I planted sunflowers in the backyard with my mom. She said they grew tall and strong because they started in the dark soil first. I wasn't sure I believed her then. But months later, I found myself standing in front of the city council, my hand steady for the first time, asking for funding for a 24-hour crisis hotline. And when the vote passed unanimously, I realized I wasn't speaking as the mayor's daughter anymore. I was speaking as me. A survivor. Justice didn't erase what happened. It didn't give me back the girl I was before that night. But it gave me something else. A voice. And I intend to use it.